What's up, y'all? Welcome to the 4th episode of the iChange Podcast. I'm your host, Oscar Kimjika, and today I got my homeboy from way back, former Lehman College teammate, Courtney Thomas Jr. What's up, brother?
What's up, bro?
How you feeling, man?
Good.
All right.
You coming out?
Yeah, man. So we out here in PA. What town is it?
YMSing.
Say that again?
YMSing, Pennsylvania.
Okay, I can't even pronounce that, but I'm over here in Pennsylvania for the weekend, and I decided to stop by and catch up with some old times with an old friend. It's great to be here. So talk to us about your background. I know we've been former teammates, track and field teammates way back when in Lehman College years ago, and now you're coaching.
Yep.
Talk to us about your coaching style. First of all, give us some reminiscent times that stood out to you in memory from our time at Lehman College as teammates.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As you were saying that, there was one that kind of like popped into my head where I forget what track meet we were at, what location. Maybe you could tell me.
Okay.
I remember I watched you run the 400 and you came around the backstretch.
Yeah.
And just off of how you came out off the blocks, I already knew that was going to be a good time for you. Mm-hmm. And as you finished, actually it was your record time for that season. You've had to run faster in the before in the past, but I remember that you ran a 50-point, and I had asked you, what are you doing that kind of like gets you to that point of just each track meet you're just lowering your time, and your response to me was, it's really easy. You just put in the work, you put in the hard work.
Yeah.
And you just keep listening to what your coaches are saying, and you don't ask any other questions. But what really stood out to me was in my opinion, was very profound. Was when you're running the 400 or in any event, you kind of invite the pain, and that just like resonated in my soul so good that I even use that terminology with my athletes now. Because if you think about it, if you get out slow running, for example, the 400. It's going to hurt regardless. That lactic acid is going to build up anyway.
Right.
But if you get out hard and you do, you hit the marks that you're supposed to do, hold your form at the end, the pain is going to come anyway. But if you invite the pain, if you accept that challenge,
embrace it,
you're only going to get stronger mentally and physically. So
Absolutely.
That's definitely something I reminisced.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I mean, it's always good to, impart something in a fellow teammate that he's now using to coach his athletes.
Absolutely. It's
just awesome feeling. I'm always about passing things forward and paying things forward, and sharing knowledge. Yeah, good stuff. All right. So talk to me about your coaching style. Like what inspires you, and like what do you turn to for motivation?
Well, really simple. My philosophy is simple. I kind of get into the psychology of coaching where if I can get in the heads of the athletes to believe in themselves that they can be great, the game is over. It's one thing if a coach says, "Hey, I see potential in you," and we actually seeing that potential, and they don't believe it in themselves, they're not going to push as hard.
Right.
So I go back to the fundamentals of training, where simple drills. If they can get a concept that they wasn't getting before, that changes everything for them. Then they start to believe that it's possible that they can get better.
Yeah.
And once the belief level is there, I can take them to the next level.
Yeah. Belief. You mentioned belief, very important. And I believe that, belief is what's really going to be the engine that drives us. We can be given a task, but if we don't believe that we can complete it, the moment we step foot to do it, it's like, we have a defeated mentality already before we even start. So that belief factor is very important.
100%.
So where do you look and read for knowledge and inspiration as a coach?
Absolutely. It's a good question. I mean, this is going to be a little bit of a tangent, but I'll circle back.
Right.
I have like an entrepreneurial mindset where I use that ideology to my coaching advantage, where if you think out the box, you can transition both your general knowledge into the track and vice versa. So I take a little bit of everyone. People that aren't all-time great athletes, I take a little bit of their aspects. I'll put it into my coaching. Great athletes, I'll mention a few. Oscar as one. A coach that I kind of till this day kind of like sticks to me, which Leslie Hogg, which is our head coach.
From Lehman
he
College.
he was also an Olympic coach for certain athletes. Another one that stood out to me was Coach Dwayne. A lot of people didn't like his coaching style, but I like it because
tough,
very tough, very strict, very down to earth. If he felt that you needed to work on something, he will tell you straightforward. And that's kind of how my coaching style is. I learned a lot from that, and I was more. He was very militant, if you will.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of concept that you have to not only be an amazing athlete on the track or with any sport you're doing, but in general life. If you don't have that mentality to push and persevere when you want to give up, or to keep trying and fail forward, you're never going to be great at anything.
Perseverance, very important. Yeah. What have you learned from your athletes as a coach? I know as coaches, even my experience as a coach, there's a lot of things that I learned from athletes and the different types of, attitudes that they bring towards practice, the demeanor, the different personality types.
Yes.
So talk to us about what you've learned working with athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. Each athlete you can't train every athlete the same. It's like in school, they like to teach to the general ed. There's some athletes that might pick up things a little slower than others. Some are more visual, some are more
kinesthetic.
Right, you know what I mean? So you got to kind of key in on those things and kind of observe that from the beginning of your coaching for whichever season that you're starting to coach, and kind of like hone in on what type of athlete that might be, how their learning curve is. Sometimes their home environment or their environment they live in can play a major role in how they interact with coaching and other athletes and how they perform on the track.
Right. And then performance also, it correlates with the attitude that they bring towards practice.
Absolutely.
If they're coming off a great performance, then they're likely to carry that over into the next practice and working harder to, continue to improve. So that's another very important way. What's your greatest accomplishment so far as a coach?
I have two. My first greatest accomplishment as a coach, I started coaching in 2013 when I was interning while I was at Lehman College. And coming off of that, I got hired at Hunter College in 2014 as a jumps coach. I only did long jump, and the head coach at the time, may he rest in peace, he believed in me for whatever reason. Gave me a shot as a jumps coach, and I literally had to teach myself how to high jump and how to triple jump. And my biggest achievement in that was to get the athletes that I was training, they all medaled in championships. And because of the way I was so dedicated and I guess the eagerness to learn and perfect my craft, those athletes helped us win the championships both in indoor and outdoor seasons.
Awesome
that was
stuff.
my biggest achievement at that point.
Great.
Secondly, just literally the athletes coming back to you and saying, thank you, coach, for helping me with this, and hey, thank you, coach, for helping me with that. I'm now here because of what you taught me.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of the biggest things.
That is one of the biggest gratifications as fitness professionals and coaches, where we can instill something in an athlete, and then years down or a client, and years down the line, they come back and thank us and they're continuing to implement those things and pay it forward. So that's like the biggest tribute that we get, biggest gratification that we get as coaches and trainers. How do you motivate your athletes? What do you pull from to motivate them?
A very interesting question. A little difficult to answer because, again, going back to kind of like the earlier question you asked me, where you kind of got to see where those athletes are, where their mindset is at that point in time, and. My biggest philosophy is there's no such thing as bad athletes, there's bad coaches. And I don't mean that every coach that can't get an athlete to a certain point are bad coaches. No, it's kind of a way of looking at it. How can I get that athlete to understand this? And how can I get them from point A to B? And that's the best way I can kind of like explain that.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I answered that question.
You kind of did. All right, so I'm going to restructure it.
Okay.
So if an athlete is in the dumps, right, or coming up a bad performance, what do you pull from to remotivate that athlete and stir them back into building that fire in them again that says, okay, let's go back to the drawing board and let's push harder so that we can perform better?
Absolutely. Perfect example. I believe it was this last track meet. I think it was sometime last Saturday. There was a athlete of mine. I will not mention as of now. Female athlete, long sprinter, feels that she can be a sprinter. She's pretty decent at short sprints, but she didn't really get out the blocks the way she was supposed to, with the triple extension, 45-degree angle. She didn't push off the blocks the way we practiced for weeks. And she was really down. She didn't get the time that she wanted because of those things that she thought that she could have perfected at the meet.
Right.
So I pulled her aside and I spoke to her and I said, well, did you try your best? And she said, yes, I did, this and that. And I said, that's all I want. I was like, I'm not that coach that I'm going to push you down and say you didn't do this and this is why. No,
Right.
This is something that we can work on and get you better at. Because what I like to say to the athletes is that practice is your practice for track meets, and your track meets are the practice for championships. Mm-hmm. So if we can get that mindset from early in the season and kind of motivate them and build them up to know that failing at something doesn't mean that you're going to be trash or
process.
You know what I mean? Everything you got to fail for, be okay with failing,
Right.
Be okay with messing up so we can learn from that. So that way when the time comes, crunch time, we can make it happen.
Right. Yeah. And it's about failing to succeed.
Yes.
Right. Failing forward, as quote from Will Smith, fail forward.
Yep.
And I believe in that. Like, we don't have all the answers, and it's like trial and error. You go out there, you perform at your best, right? You give it your all, but that is not the end all.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to continue to improve,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's a process of development. What types of training methods do you use?
Depends. There's a little myth here that goes on with the athletic way of training and the working out in the gym training, where you have to in track and field or just athletes in general, you have to work out sport specific or event specific. If it's a sprinter, I use methods of short sprints versus having them run to the ground all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Resistant training, whether it's with weightlifting or bands or speed sleds or speed sacks, I love, or just certain small drills that can kind of catapult them to the next level. Hypertrophy isn't the ideal way of training an athlete. It is a goal to get an athlete stronger, but again,
it's not necessary
right.
for all types.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Event specific is the way I like to train my athletes.
Got it. I'm on along the same lines as you when it comes to event specific, because a lot of times we get so hung up on the strength, but if it's not strength towards a specific event, especially for track and field, then it's like, you're just building strength but not really getting faster and specific to that event. Like for instance, as an 800 meter runner, a lot of times I find myself, doing the strength training in the weight room, but it doesn't transfer into the races as much as it should, right? So this is just trial and error from my own personal experience, So when we're dealing with strength, we want to be specific as possible, as far as conditioning the athlete. How do your strengths, speaking on strengths, how do your strengths as a coach differ and correlate to when you were an athlete?
Absolutely. So giving you a little bit about myself, I started running track, cross country at that, just running in general, 8 years old. My mom put me in running because I was just so hyperactive, and it helped me a lot. I wasn't always the best athlete. I wasn't always the fastest. I was still kind of like trying to see what I was good at. I did a little bit of everything in event wise, and you could say I was like a mediocre athlete that didn't really get the attention I needed to take my possible potential to the next level until I met Coach Dwayne, and that was my senior year. So it was like, you know what I mean? But I kind of use that aspect to coach my athletes, where if I see a mediocre athlete, I'm not going to shy away from that because they're not at that elite level, or the gifted and talented athletes that may not need as much work. I will work with that athlete just as much, if not more, and get them to that next level, because it's winning championships is something that I strive for, but it's not everything. But you can't win a team by yourself. You have to structure a whole village together in order to make that happen.
Yeah. There's no I in team, and teamwork makes the dream work.
Exactly.
How do you coach different personality types? I know we touched on the types of methods of motivation, which is related to this question, but different personality types does play into that as well. How do you coach different personality types?
This was a question that I had. I'm actually to this an interview I did with where I coach now. We're gonna get into that. Where the athletic director asked me in a different way, but the same question. For example, everyone has different personalities, and you again as a coach, it's your job to kind of like hone in on that. Some are more visual, some are more assertive, some are more attentive, some are more they can accept more constructive criticism.
Right.
So I have to figure out, all right, let me dish out this to them. Let me say it in a
way that they can receive
it.
Right.
And if they can receive it that way, all right, I'll touch it up a notch a little bit when I feel like they need a little bit more sturdiness. Mm-hmm. And if they receive that, then I know, okay, those are probably my limits with that athlete.
Right.
As far as coaching, for example, even with gender, I have to be very careful with how I approach certain things. Not to be sexist, I have a daughter, she's 6 years old. But, females, sometimes you have to come at them a little bit more, sensitive. A little more sensitive. Right. And kind of like, I like to like get athletes a little bit more aggressive than what they might be in the norm of. So again, these are things that personality is a big thing, but also gender is another big role in specifically who you're training. So those are some of the things I look out for.